uploaded my feedback in
Google Drive.
in Google Drive for your instruments and for your method section. So I don't know if you've had a chance yet to take a
Yes.
look. Do you have any questions about the feedback, about any comments that I made in your document?
No, I just saw some comments such as that I have to add information related to how to I select some teachers to be observed
Okay.
and then to be interviewed. But I think the comments are clear.
Okay. So have you started talking with your teacher? Started collecting
I
data?
observe yes, I observed a teacher on Saturday at Uta, and tomorrow I wanna observe another teacher on secondary.
Okay.
Um, I have a question. We took the last class, the last tutoring session to observe two teachers, of course, 3 times. If I have chance, I should observe a third teacher. But the time.
Well, I think we talked about the last class, the
Uh-huh.
last tutoring session. I think we talked about either 2 or 3
Uh-huh.
teachers, no? And I think we
I
mentioned
like
that
to
if you,
observe a teacher from elementary school, secondary school, and university. But it's gonna depend on the time.
pero sí platicamos ¿no?
Sí.
Que yo entendí que vas a enfocar en 2 maestros,
Uh-huh.
¿no?
Sí, sí, nada más digo,
Ok.
por en caso de que pudiera
Ajá.
meter un tercero, pero ya lo terminaría pues en estos días porque platiqué con él y tiene muchas
Bueno.
suspensiones de clase, entonces.
So when you start collecting data, you need to reflect and kind of do a quick analysis of what you observe and ask yourself if you are getting the information that you need to answer your research questions. Mm-hmm. So you're constantly analyzing and reflecting on whether or not you're getting the information that you need. So hopefully after 1 or 2 observations from each of these 2 teachers, it should tell you whether 3 or maybe even 4 observations, if that's enough. That's probably going to be enough. So, I mean, I think you can probably focus on 2 teachers,
Okay.
but you need to look at the data and see if that is getting the information that you need to properly answer your research questions.
Okay.
So, I would rather that you focus more deeply on 2 than less of 3 participants, less kind of superficially. So, if you can get more information from those 2 participants, I think you'll be better off. So, let me know next week how things are going. Let me know how much information you're getting from your observations. You need to know when you're going to be actually doing your interviews, if you're going to wait until the very end after you've observed all the classes, or if you're going to do interviews after a few or 1 or 2 observations. Yeah.
Because based on the observation, I'm gonna start formulating some questions to
Right.
the semi-structure interview, right?
Right. But you can decide, depending on what you need to find out. Some students are waiting to do their interview after they've completed all of their observations. Some students are doing an interview after 1 or 2 observations when they still have further observations to conduct. It just depends on the situation, depends on what information you need. But you have to, that's why you need, after every observation, kind of review and reflect back on the information that you obtained to determine if you are getting the information, if you have doubts, if you think that it's really necessary to have an interview right away, or if you feel that you can wait until the very end after you've observed all the classes.
Because I'm trying to triangulate the information that I have right now. For example, on Saturday that I observed, I looked the information that I got from the observation. Then I look at the research questions, and I'm comparing my little review if I'm doing the information that I'm.
Right. And you're going to do that regardless, right?
Uh-huh.
That's the right approach.
Okay.
That's what you should be doing. But what I'm referring to is the actual process of when you're going to apply, in this case, the interview. See? So you could triangulate by applying the interview at the very end, or you can triangulate applying the interview after every observation. Now, you have to decide the best approach depending on what information that you need and what's missing, and whether you think that one interview is necessary, right? Several are necessary, or just one at the end. Okay, so it just depends on your own, the purpose of your research questions, and the information that you're getting. And so, if you're not sure, then we need to discuss it. You need to bring in your data, talk about what you specifically observed, and what you think that you need to ask in the interviews, and whether or not you should wait to the very end, or if you should ask during the observation period. But that's a decision you'll need to make. Okay, but I would think try to focus on two, but two participants. But next week, let me know how things are going and how much information you're getting, and then to see if that third participant's necessary. But I think if you can get at least 3 observations, perhaps 4 if you're focusing only on 2 teachers, then maybe you can get an additional observation if you think that would help you better answer your questions, your research questions. Okay. If there are any changes to the method or to the procedure, the way in which you're applying your questionnaires, if there's any changes to the questionnaires themselves, remember to go back to the Google Drive document and make those changes. All right, so it's very important that's kept up to date. So on May 23rd, when you finish the entire document, that everything's up to date.
You're gonna be revelate the method section as well, right?
I'm sorry?
You're gonna revelate the
Yes.
method section as
So
well?
at the very end, I'm going to be looking at your finished product for us on May 23rd, and then going back and assessing and adjusting grades accordingly if you've made the appropriate changes, if you've made improvements to your writing for that date, for that due date.
On the spring break, we're gonna have the chance to start discussing the data that we collect.
Yeah, that's what you should be working on. You should be analyzing and begin writing your draft. Because once we get back after break, I think we only have like 2 weeks.
Just 2 weeks to
two weeks to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no more time to collect data at that point. When you go to break, you should have all the data that you need. Analyze and start writing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come back on your first tutoring session in May, then you show me what you have. We discuss how you want to organize it. Because just as we talked a lot about how to organize your literature review, we're going to talk about the same and how you're going to present your results. How do you want to organize it?
It's going to be the same order.
Well, it may be the same order, it may not.
Mm.
But you have to think, okay, how do I want to organize my ideas? Yeah. And so that's what we're going to be discussing in our tutoring sessions at that point, about how you want to organize your thoughts. But you need to first have analyzed all of the data and know kind of the results that you have, and start thinking about, okay, how do I want to present for these? Okay, but we'll talk about those later. Right now, we want to focus on collecting the data, and remember, we have 3 weeks basically. I'm recommending that you try to finish by April 11th, and then you'll have another 3 days of Holy Week.
It's the last week, right?
Well, April 11th is the week before Holy Week. You're still going to have 3 days during Holy Week, but many schools don't do much on Holy Week. So I would not count on that. If you need a couple of more observations and you can do it on Holy Week, fine.
It's Friday, 11
Yeah.
April.
Mm-hmm. But I know sometimes the schools, the kids are already in vacation mode, and teachers are, there's things.
Actually, some universities are close to finish the courses.
Yeah.
That's why it's very difficult to observe it.
Exactly.
For example, I interviewed 2 teachers from Putna, and they leave the next week. So
yeah.
It's very limited.
Yeah. So that's just plan your time well, and try to get as much as you can finished by April 11th. Yeah. So for next week, bring in what you have. If you have questions about, I want to know what type of information you're getting. If you feel you're getting information, good information for your research, and if you want to bring in the actual data and show me the data, if you have doubts, that's fine. But you don't. That's not a requirement. But if you want to bring it in, you have specific questions, bring in your material. We can look at it, and I can give you information feedback.
Okay. Is there any problem if I type the information when I am serving?
Well, here's the thing.
Or do you prefer I write?
Well,
down
it's up to you whether you
I
write.
prefer to type on the computer because
Whatever's faster. Whatever you can do
yes,
faster.
it's better.
Yeah.
And then I can print it out and show.
Yeah.
I actually have the observation, but I prefer to.
But remember that you are just, when you observe, you're just writing out what you observe.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
you're not analyzing.
No,
So
no,
it's
no,
like
no.
teacher said this,
Okay.
the teacher walked around. So,
That's what I did.
so yeah, it doesn't matter if you type it out or write it out, whatever's fast. But do make sure you get everything recorded. Make sure
Yes.
you check your devices,
Mhm.
that everything's working. Your phone has a charge. That some phones turn off automatically after 30 minutes. So make sure that everything's working well. You might even do a test, even on just a group that's not even in your study, and just check the recording, just make sure everything is in working order. And then next week we'll look at what you have at that point. So work very closely with the teachers and make sure that you are kind of telling them from the beginning more or less what you are asking, what you need. How many interviews, how many observations, if you need anything from the students, if you're doing a questionnaire or
I have another
interview.
question. For example, in my fourth instrument is a question for students because my third research question is related to the perception that students have when teacher apply strategies. And I designed an instrument in Spanish. Why? Because I think it's a little bit difficult to students to write in English the answers.
How old are the students?
Well, it's gonna be for uh, university students and secondary students.
And what level? What English level?
Um, the ones that I'm serving at UTA, they are in a TOEIC preparation, and the secondary school is for third grade,
But what level of English?
basic.
Like for the elementary kids? Is it level? Are they pretty much at a low level English?
I think in secondary school they are a low level English, and UTA they have a little bit more level.
Well, yeah. If it's for an exam. So for the university students, I would do it in English. The same document, but in English because you're going to have to translate. You're going to have to.
Yeah.
You're going to have to translate everything.
And
And
it's
that's a
gonna
lot
be
of
more
work.
work.
And then they have a pretty good level if it's for a TOEFL course. They should
Well,
have,
for TOEIC.
or TOEIC
Okay.
rather. Yeah, they should
Okay.
have a fairly good level. For the secondary, this is tercero de secundaria. So they're like what, 15?
15, 14, 15.
But you don't. What level is it? Is it what level of English? Is it a basic level or
Basic.
is it
No,
intermediate?
No, I think it's basic.
Well, you decide.
Uh-huh.
It can be in Spanish or English, but it's if you think that they can do it in English, it's better because then you don't. For one, you don't have to translate it, and two, you get kind of an idea. I mean, it's just as good to have it in English than have it in Spanish. Sometimes if it's for a really low level, then I could see justification for an instrument in Spanish, and it's also for little kids, or if it's even little kids, it's sometimes it's not even appropriate to use an
Because I made open questions. So what about if I make a closed question? Well, I mean, with options.
Well, it depends on what you want, what you're asking,
Mm.
and if that's going to help you.
I can
Is it
modify that instrument, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you need to ask yourself, okay, your research questions, you're trying to answer your research questions, and what information is going to give you the best information. And so is a Likert scale or a closed question is that going to be helpful? And how many students are you applying this to? That's another consideration. How many, for example, in the university, how many students are taking the
they are
course?
only 8.
Okay, so I would do an open questionnaire
Okay.
just to get more information. And it's not going to take you very long to analyze.
And in secondary, there are more than 20 students.
Well, but
Or can I consider only some part of the group or the whole group?
well,
It's
depends.
gonna depend.
It depends.
Yeah.
I mean, you need. It depends. What are you observing? What are your research questions? What are you observing? Do you see something really out of the ordinary? Maybe you have a conversation with the teacher, an interview, and he or she says something really interesting about certain students, and that helps you decide on. So, yeah, that's all those things you need to decide, and you have options. Okay, I think, but you just need to know, what's the best way to do it. Now, if your research, what do you research? What are your research questions?
How do teachers promote cognitive strategies in reading comprehension among language learners?
All right. So you're going to be looking for, in your class, maybe you look for certain, like strong students and weak students, perhaps. And you maybe do a comparison between some of the strong students and the weak students. Now, how do you determine those strong and weak students? You can talk to the teacher. You can observe if they're on task, if they are participating in class.
And that could be asked on the semi-structured interview?
You could ask the teacher. You could ask if you could ask the teacher to rank the students, the strongest to the weakest, in general, right? Or even based on the reading skill, he or she could rank the students. This is my strongest student. This is my weakest student, as an example. And then based on that, you choose which students. It could be part of that list along with your observations. Maybe you see something really interesting in your observation, and you want to focus on understanding more about that student or those few students. Then you could do an interview. You could do an open questionnaire, but just very brief, 2 or 3 questions, but where they have to really elaborate, or maybe even one question where they just have to write a paragraph about something in their class or something that you want to know about, but that they're giving you a lot of text that you can analyze. Okay, so I mean, these are all possibilities, but that's what you need to decide. So maybe next week, after you have had some observations, then we can talk about possibly what to do in the interview, what to ask about in the interview, and also about how to approach the students. If you need to look at doing, a questionnaire, or it's just a lot of options. You could do a focus group. You could do individual interviews, right? But it just all depends on what you want to look for. What are you trying to research?
The next week we should analyze that deeply.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that you are probably going to maybe select a couple of students, but it needs to be a reason for it. You need to say, well, I chose these students because they're maybe academically strong, and I also noticed that they were doing this in the reading, or maybe they were helping other students, or something that drew your attention, that you noticed, that you found interesting, that you really want to inquire more about. That's what you need to be considering.
The next week is gonna be the schedule normal.
Yeah, we have. When are you normally scheduled?
On Friday.
Okay, yeah. So normal schedule next Friday. I have a meeting from 10 to 12, but on Thursday, but that doesn't affect you. So yeah, let's just plan on that, and we'll talk next week. If there's something that we need to discuss before Friday, if there's something that you want to, that you have doubts about, see me throughout the week.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll have our regular tutoring session next Friday, and you let me know how things are going.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, man.
All right.
That's it.
Well, have a good week then.
See you.
I won't be here Thursday or Friday, so it'll be
Okay.
until Monday. But I will be checking my email, so if you want to send me something, if
Mhm.
you have doubts, you can also email me in Canvas.
Okay.
All right.
Have a nice day.
All right,
Have a
thank
weekend
you.
as well.
Take care. Bye.